Okay, folks, we're a few days into the semester, and you should have already started, gotten through, I guess, around scene 4 by now. Hopefully, you're not too confused by this odd little play, and kind of can get the themes. I will go through a little bit of the discussion area because most people have already jumped in there and they've done a good job, so that's great to see. So let me go through a little bit with Antigone and set out some of the themes so we can get started, understanding certain things, covering certain ideas, but also go through the calendar and just show you a little bit more on breaking down the metaphors. Okay, so let me make myself a little bit smaller here, put myself up there, and I do want to remind folks I do have 2 classes in English 101. So I do want to, I'll go through one of the classes, but understand that it applies to both. You guys are both doing a good job. Let's take a look at where we are in the calendar so we know what we're doing. Let's see, today is the 19th. You should be reading sections 3 and 4, doing the discussion. What I'm going to do with the discussions, I'm going to walk through them with everybody and walk through a couple of them. Folks are doing a really good job. Many people are getting a little bit confused on how to walk through the metaphor machine. So I'm going to make comments on some of these. Please understand that if I point out a shortcoming in a discussion, in the metaphor or something like that, you're not blowing it. You're doing great. In fact, everything I've seen in the discussion, almost everything has been really good. I'm just trying to show you the details of it. So please don't think if I go through and correct how you went through the metaphor machine that you're doing it badly or anything like that. You're actually doing a great job. I'm just showing you how to go through, kind of the stages of it. And so I'll come back to that. So you should be finishing up 3 and 4 today and summarizing 3 and 4. And I'll go over especially 1 and 2. I'll see if I can dig up some 3 and 4s. And then 5 by tomorrow. Okay. By the time you get to 5, you really should have the metaphor machine down. And again, I'm going to go through it again today. The way you learn is by doing. I've shown you how to do it. You have to do it and get corrected a little bit on it and then move forward with it, and you got it down. And again, I really want to emphasize the discussion areas are the place where you learn. So don't worry if I point out, hey, you can adjust this and adjust that. That's why you're taking English, right? Okay, so don't worry about it, okay? We're going to get towards the 25th. That's going to be essay day. So tomorrow I'm going to be posting up some PDFs where you can start working on the early draft stages. And on Friday, I'll be posting some things on the middle draft stages. And on the 24th, we'll be going through the final stages so you can have that essay in and feel pretty good about it. Okay? So that's what we're looking at. So get 5 done, tomorrow. You're going to have some work to do to get started on the essay. I'll show you how to do it, but you want to finish 5 first. We'll go through the middle draft stages on the 21st, and then the final draft stages on the 24th. Okay, so we'll get that. And everybody's going to be happy. Trust me. It's tragedy. Everybody's got to be happy, right? Okay, let's go over here to Antigone. Here she is. And I've got a bunch of quotations. There's no chance I'm going to get through all of them. I got to get my mic out of here. I'm going to get through all of them. I'm going to try to set up some of the themes that are going on. But one thing I really want to emphasize, if you see these differently and you can show it with the evidence, run with it. Okay, I really want to encourage people to go their own darn way with their interpretation of Antigone. I will point out right from the gun, I tend to not have such a great view of Antigone. And that tends to bother a lot of students because Antigone, man, she can really bust out a can of whoop bottom. And that's cool. I really like that. But you're going to see I don't have as favorable of an interpretation of Antigone, but I want to be very clear. If you do and you want to hold on to it, please do. As long as you're working with the evidence, run with your ideas, hold on to them. So I really want to encourage that. This is going to be a matter of analysis, of insight. Remember with the metaphor machine, and this is what critical thinking is about. On the metaphor machine, I walk you through 3 stages. First, you figure out what's being talked about, okay? And everybody should basically agree on that, okay? Then you're going to describe what kind of words are being used. And once again, everybody pretty much should agree on that. But when you move to the 3rd stage and you say, why is this important? That's analysis. And I really want to emphasize it's analysis, not opinion. Opinion is, I like Antigone, she's really cool. Opinion is, I don't like Antigone, she's kind of a jerk. Who cares? Okay, that's just taking a side. Okay, that's just taking a position. That's not useful to anybody. Analysis gives an insight. It shows how things are working on a deeper level. Now, you won't necessarily agree or disagree with somebody's analysis, but what you've gained is an insight on a certain perspective that's useful. It shows you how things are working at a deeper level. That's what analysis is about. So I want you, after you go through the early stages of the process of using that metaphor machine, think about why it's important and understand now, after you've broken everything down, you're on your own. You can do what you need to do, but as long as you're responding to that evidence, you're in good shape. Okay, so let's. And by the way, this is an old translation. I'm not sure where the painting's from. This is why I use this PDF is number one, because Robert Fitzgerald's involved, and he, in the world of Greek translation, he's just really cool. He's like the Michael Jordan. Nobody would recognize him on the street anymore, but he's really cool. Okay. But anyway, let's go through this. That's Antigone right there, and that's Ismene. I don't know where this painting is from. It looks like a pre-Raphaelite. But again, the problem is they didn't put any page numbers on it. They didn't even put Fitzgerald or Fitz on the cover, whatever. So it's floating around there. It's free. And we already talked about kind of this opening stuff here. I want to go through some of this a little more carefully. And I want you to just for some background on it. You have Ismene referring to their family tragedy. And this is very important because this was part of the curse that was on the house of Cadmus. Cadmus was one of their founding fathers in that city, and really they took the idea of founding fathers quite literally because he was going back in the family. It was actual family stuff. He kind of pissed off the gods by no real fault of his own. It just kind of happened. He wasn't a jerk. He was a nice guy. But the gods got angry at him, and I won't go through all of it, but they just got angry at him. It happens. Stuff happens. Ismene says, "Ah, sister, Oedipus died, everyone hating him for what his own search brought to light, his eyes, ripped out by his own hands, and Jocasta died, his mother and wife at once." One of the things to note about this, they're kind of throwaway lines, but ripped out by his own hands. Oedipus recognized the crime that he committed. He slept with his mother and he killed his father. He didn't know who they were when he did it, okay? This is very important. Oedipus did not know. He came across his father's path not knowing it was his dad. Yeah, he was raised in another town. Didn't know it was him. They got into a fight. He killed him. He gets to his father's town, the town where he was born, and didn't know it. And he actually saves the city. Long story short, he saves the city from a sphinx. They make him king. Hey, guess what? Your mom, she's now your queen. But they didn't tell him about that mom thing. Nobody knew at all. So he had children by his mother. But now this was a crime against nature. Notice that Oedipus ripped out his own eyes. He punishes himself because he knows this is not about intentionality, which is a big part of American law and American culture. This is a crime against nature. And Oedipus found the crime against nature that he had committed, and he punishes himself appropriately. He does not want to see the results of his own crime. So Oedipus had a deep sense of right and wrong and of justice. So even though he was, absolutely, cursed, he still acted upon this sense of right and wrong and what he owed the city and what he owed nature and the gods. So that's part of their background. That's part of what Ismene sees in her father, but also recognizes that this is part of their curse and brings it up with Antigone. Hey, Antigone, kind of a family problem going on here. Does Antigone listen? No. Well, let's watch out. And then, their mother, Jocasta, that's pronounced Jocasta. And notice that she doesn't say dad and mom. It's like, it's weird with Ismene. It's not even as much as what she says, but what she doesn't say. That's dad. Okay? It's Oedipus died, everyone hating him. That was dad. And Jocasta wasn't just the queen, that was mom. Okay? So a lot of what goes on in this play isn't so much what's said It's often what's unsaid, what should have been said, but isn't. And all of them do this, okay? Creon is their uncle. So Yocasta's brother. So again, talk about, strange families. But anyway, so she goes through this and says, "But, O Antigone, think how much more terrible than these our own deaths would be if we go against Creon, and do what he has forbidden. We are only women. We cannot fight with men." Antigone says, "Bring it on, man." For that, if you love Antigone for that, I'm with you. Because Antigone just spurs her on in the exact opposite direction. Now, keep in mind that these are sisters. Antigone acts in the exact opposite direction of her sister. And she knows it. And she ought to know that things are going to be bad. But Ismene is at her core sexist and thinks very thinks very little of women, I should say, that they can't fight up. Antigone does do exactly what she's not supposed to ought to do. Now, one thing to be clear about, this is, 420 or something BC. Were women like this? Were they? Well, yeah, women were second-class status, but plenty of women were like Antigone. It wasn't like Sophocles just made her up out of nowhere. Women could pull this on their husbands, on their fathers, and everything else. Just if you look into Socrates' wife, well, yeah, she had a bit of a toot also, and in a good way. So this spurs on Antigone to fight against it. Okay, so be aware of that at the core of this is a lot of Ismene's just self-doubt. And a lot of Antigone's headstrong attitude comes from these sexist attitudes that appear around them. Is Sophocles going against them? Kind of seems like it, but can't say for sure because these are characters. But he has Antigone being very sharp, being very willful, and everything else, and standing up to it. If that is what you think, I should not want you, even if you ask to come. But you have made your choice. You can be what you want to be. But I will bury him. And watch what Antigone does. She kind of guilts Ismene. You're giving up on your family, is what Antigone's doing. Antigone is no dummy. I don't agree with how she goes about things. I agree with a lot of what she does, but that's my view. Don't worry about that. I agree a lot with what she does. I don't always agree with how she does it. She guilts Ismene. And then watch what she does. The language here is very telling. But I will bury him, and if I must die, I say that this crime is holy. So she says it's holy. Is it? I don't know. How do you know? And I'll tell you right now, it's kind of hard to tell. Lots of people think they know what the gods think. The chorus thinks they know. The Choragus thinks they know. Creon thinks he knows. Antigone thinks she knows. I'm telling you, I don't think any of them know. But notice what they do once they say that they know. I say that this crime is holy. I shall, and then watch these words. This is creepy. I shall lie down with him in death, and I shall be as dear to him as he to me. Boy, does that sound a lot like husband and wife, but keep in mind this is brother and sister. It's pretty creepy, but that's what Antigone seems to be doing subconsciously. She's in love with the dead, and she's in love with her dead brother. It's pretty creepy. Okay, that's there. Okay, and am I making it up? Well, maybe I am, and maybe I belong on Maury Povich, or I don't know, the next family show for whatever, for Dr. Phil or something like that. But I think it's there, and I think Fitzgerald and Fitz picked up on it because it's in the original language. And again, keep in mind this is Oedipus's family, where he unwittingly slept with his mother. And had children by it. Could that be going on behind this? Yeah, it seems like Antigone has this unhealthy attraction to the dead and her dead family. But it's a reasonable loyalty to her family. It is. But remember, keep in mind that Polynices attacked his own brother in his own city. Antigone doesn't mention that. Whoops. So a lot of what's going on is what's there in the words. and what's kind of behind the words, but also what's not even mentioned by Ismene, by Antigone. There's a lot going on under the surface of this. This is why, by the way, Sophocles is such a great playwright. This is one of his first plays. He's a young man when he's writing this. I believe he's in his early 20s. This is stunning work, okay? Just so you know, there's so much going on behind it. And it's there. It's present in there, even though it's not stated, it's often there. She says to her, this is what I'm talking about with guilting Ismene. Go away, Ismene, I shall be hating you soon, and the dead will too. I'm asking, how does Antigone know? Because she's not dead yet, and she can't tell us after she is. I shall be hating you soon, the dead will too, for your words are hateful. Leave me to my foolish plan. This is her sarcasm. I am not afraid of the danger, but the thing is, she's not. Antigone is an amazing character. Notice we're only a couple of pages into this play, and Antigone's doing some pretty outrageous thing, and we already kind of know who she is within just a few pages. That's the brilliance of Sophocles. But it also tells you a lot about Antigone. She doesn't fit into a simple cookie cutter approach of bad guy, good guy. She's very nervy. She is fearless. But she also guilts her own sister. She does these creepy things with her brother. I won't go too far on that. But anyway, the chorus does this. I want you to be aware of their positions and their motivations for how they act. Against our 7 gates in a yawning ring, the famished spears came onward in the night. But before his jaws were sated with our blood, his jaws are Polynices' jaws. This is a metaphor. It's as if he's a dragon or some kind of beast, sating his thirst with their blood. The chorus is the voice of the people. Okay? The chorus is the voice of the people, and they clearly see Polynices as a traitor and a threat to the city. And he's some kind of demon out for their blood, ready to drink their blood. Okay? If you've read Beowulf, this is Grendel. He's out to drink their blood. Okay? That's how the chorus sees him. Notice how the disjunction between the chorus at this point. Later on, things are going to change. Hearts change throughout this play for very compelling reasons. But at this point, it's important to know that the chorus sees Polynices as a traitor to the city, who was a threat to them personally, to their very lives. Okay? And the Chorugos, that's the elderly. One thing I want to tell you, I pointed this out in the introduction video, the Chorugos and the chorus would have been singing this back and forth. There would have been instruments playing. Ancient Greek theater was astounding with what they achieved. We don't have the music today. We don't know what it sounded like. But we have some idea of what the instruments looked like. They had harps and other things. But whatever, we don't know that much. For God hates utterly the bragging tongues of the bray of the bragging tongues. And when he beheld their smiling, their swagger of golden helms, the frown of his thunder blasted the first man from the walls. This again is metaphoric language, but notice the Chorugos was very clearly on the side of blasting the living Pucky out of Polynices. God hates utterly the bray of bragging tongues. Does he? And they wouldn't be thinking of the Judeo-Christian God here. This would have been Zeus. Okay. Okay, going up a little bit more, you have Creon comes in and he sets out his law to all the people. Notice he does this in front of everyone. And people don't just come unglued and say, oh, you're a tyrant, your mother dresses you funny, we hate you. They don't do that. He says, I'm aware that no ruler can expect complete loyalty from his subjects until he has been tested in office. So he is aware that his rule is not entirely solid. Nevertheless, I say to you that at the very outset I have nothing but contempt for the kind of governor who is afraid, for whatever reason, to follow the course he knows what is best for the state. I'm going to take charge. I'm going to run the state. He's trying to do what he thinks is best for the state. I know he comes off as a jerk. And he is a jerk, but notice his motivations in the situation he's in. He's living in a city that's just gone through a civil war after having lost a ruler that was Oedipus, and having lost the ruler before that. Thebes has gone through upheaval after upheaval after upheaval. Creon is there to create rule and create order in a city that has not seen it for quite a long time. So notice that. It makes him seem a little more reasonable. Even though he does a lot wrong, he's got reason for it. So I want you to always keep that in mind. I don't have a favorable view of Creon, but I get where he's coming from. And notice that the chorus and the choragos are kind of down with that. If he was really out of line and really disjointed from the city, you know, they wouldn't be so cool with it, but they are. The sentry then does this. This is where you get an idea that things aren't quite going well in this little town. The sentry says, I say to you that I'm out of breath from running, King, because every time I stop to think about what I have to tell you, I feel like going back. And this time the voice kept saying, you fool, don't you know you're walking straight into trouble? And then another voice, yes, but if you let somebody else get the news to Grant, it will be even worse than it for you. But good sense won out at least. And you know, he's in a panic and he won't even, what the heck? Speak to me, boys, speak to me. Okay, why is the sentry so screwed up? Because he's afraid of Creon. This is your first serious indication that maybe Antigone has a point. That people are afraid of the methods that Creon is using. Okay, Creon has a reason for doing what he's doing. But the sentry is horrified at being the one who has to go forward. And he's split into two. That's what he is. He is split into two. He's got this one talking to him on one side and the other talking to him on the other. And there's a fight breaking out right on his shoulders. And we know this because we all watched cartoons. That's happening to the sentry because he's in fear of Creon. And that fear has saturated the city. So I want you to be aware of that. With Greek tragedy, and what, if you remember good old Aristotle, one of the things Aristotle wrote about was that they're in the tragic character, whether or not it's Antigone or whether it's Creon, there's always what's called a harmatia. This is some kind of character flaw. It doesn't mean they're wrong and they're going to get their just desserts and that they're going to fall because they're a jerk. It doesn't mean that. It means it's a character flaw. This is something that makes them very human. And you can see those attributes in both Antigone and in Creon. Both of them have a reason for doing what they're doing. And both of them have commendable traits in them. Both of them do. But boy, are they going to clash. And this character flaw, what do you call the harmatia, or God, I can't even pronounce it. My old Greek is bad. This character flaw is going to bring about, it's not going to be the cause of the downfall, but it's going to open them up to the downfall. It's going to trigger it. The downfall is going to happen. That's their fate. The downfall is going to happen. It's their fate. And really the tragic character in this play is Creon. Because Antigone's going to kind of bring things about on her own. Creon didn't really intend to. It's going to happen to him. But that blindness to the ruthlessness of his rule and that kind of paranoia is part of him. But you can see why it's there after you understand what the city's gone through. You can see why it's that way. So be aware of this as you go through it. Be aware of the motivations and other things and what's going on. You see, you know, Creon's paranoia. I have been wondering, King, this is where the Choragos says this. I've been wondering, King, can it be that the gods have done this? In other words, buried the body. And Creon won't even think about the complexity of the situation, that it's not so simple of white and black, right, wrong, right. It's not so simple. He won't even entertain it. He starts calling them doddering wrecks. These are the elderly within the city, the wise men. And he starts calling them doddering wrecks. Watch how he treats Tiresias. When we get to Tiresias, what I want you to think of, he's an iconic figure. Think of Yoda, the wise one who knows things. Think of Yoda. Or if you like Kung Fu Panda, think of that old wise turtle. He's an icon, icon figure. In other words, a theme. It came from originally Sophocles, the wise one who is respected and knows things. The Choragus knows things, and so does Tiresias. Watch the way Creon treats them. He was at first very respectful of them, but he becomes very abusive of them because he won't even think about it, and he acts like he already knows. It's money. That's what's guiding them. He doesn't have any evidence of that. So be aware of that. This is his character flaw that's about to bring about his downfall. So be aware of this, and I'll leave you with this. Watch the way the sentry talks about Antigone, her crying bitterly a broken note or two for a young one stolen. Just so when this girl found the bare corpse, and all her love's work wasted, she wept and cried on heaven to damn the hands that had done this thing. The hands that had done that thing was Eteocles who killed him. But the hands who had left him unburied, that's kind of an odd thing to think about. That's Creon. And she brought more dust and sprinkled wine 3 times on her brother's ghost. Notice the defiance that Antigone had when we saw Ismene earlier is now turned to compassion for her brother. That compassion was turned into defiance. But notice the way Creon's concern for his city and his desire to bring them order was turned into a headstrong attitude. The way it gets developed and the way it transforms them. And that brings about the clash. So be aware of this as you go on. I definitely encourage you to develop your own sense of what's going on at a deeper level, but I want you to be aware that there's a lot of stuff going on. We're going to go through really taking your own position on this and developing it, but as you do it, you don't want to be a Creon or Antigone. Don't be so headstrong. And don't be, the worst people of all are the ones who see, I see both sides, maybe we can all get along. Nah, I hate peaceful people. What you want to do is develop your own insight based on a close and careful reading. You're going to be taking your own insights into those words. That's what we're going to be doing, okay? So go ahead and hold on to your own position on this, but be aware of the complexity that's going on in this play. Even though this thing is really old, it's older than me. Even though it's very old, you can recognize after you've spent some time with it the subtlety that Sophocles really demonstrates with this. So we'll go through it a little bit more. I want to leave you with that. I'll come back to the discussions later on. I'll come back to the discussions next time because I've given you 27 minutes of me yammering about Antigone. But you guys are doing a good job. Look through the discussions, the comments I've made on them, and make sure you do go through. I'll point out one here. This was a good one. I commented on Wesley's. Wesley's done a very good job with it. But no, and again, I want to commend Wesley. Wesley, I'm picking on you in front of everybody. And by the way, again, keep in mind I have 2 classes. Okay, I have 2 101s. So some of you in one of the 101s won't see Wesley. What I did was go through Wesley's and I broke it down a little more slowly. Good thinking is slow thinking. So that's something you're going to hear from me over and over again. And I broke the metaphor down a little more slowly into 1 stage and then 2 stages. And I want to be clear, those first 2 stages, once you break it apart, the 3rd stage becomes easier. The 3rd stage is your analysis. This 3rd stage is my analysis. Wesley can disagree with me entirely on this 3rd stage, but make sure you first take the time to break it down into the first 2 stages before you step into the 3rd stage. Before you explain why it's important, break it apart. And I know this seems very mechanical, but boy does it work. The 3rd stage is where your analysis is, okay? All right, I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to make shorter videos later on so I don't bore you that much, but that's where it is, guys. Keep at it. We're going to keep going at this play and break it apart, and your guys are going to get really good at this stuff, okay? Take care.